Hi everyone, welcome back to Radio Night Crime. Before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. If you're enjoying the stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's relax and jump into tonight's case. Story 1. Back in 2011, the whole U.S. was rocked by a jaw-dropping verdict out of Orlando, Florida. The city's court dropped the murder charge against 25-year-old Casey Anthony, even though the Orlando prosecutors had pushed hard for the death penalty. This was a woman accused of killing her own child, and people were furious. Over 500 protesters gathered outside the courthouse, holding signs and demanding justice for the poor little victim. On August 19, 2005, Casey gave birth to a baby girl named Kaylee in Orlando. Casey claimed the baby's father was her ex-boyfriend. The moment he heard the news, he rushed to the hospital, showering the tiny newborn with kisses and swearing he'd be the best dad ever. But about a month later, DNA tests came back showing he wasn't Kaylee's biological father. Casey then switched her story, insisting Kaylee's dad was actually another guy, a lover who tragically died in a car accident and had already been cremated, making DNA tests impossible. With no clear answers, Kaylee's birth certificate listed her father as unknown, and so began Kaylee's short, heartbreaking life. From day one, Kaylee was absolutely adorable, and her grandparents doted on her, determined to raise her right. The ex-boyfriend, still stung by Casey's lies, tried to make it official by proposing, hoping to become Kaylee's real dad. But Casey just wasn't feeling the whole mom thing. After getting engaged, she quickly regretted it, deciding she couldn't handle a life stuck playing house. She even got jealous that her fiancé paid so much attention to Kaylee. In the end, she broke things off and moved back in with her parents. Casey told them she had scored a job at Universal Studios, leaving her daughter behind for her mom and dad to take care of. Fast forward over 2 years, Kaylee grew into a sweet, well-behaved, and bright little girl, an absolute treasure to her grandparents. Then came the fateful night of June 16, 2008. Casey and her mom got into a nasty argument. If you slapped a modern social media headline on it, it had read something like, on one side, I've had it up to here with mom nagging about me not working, not cleaning, not settling down, I'm about to lose it. On the other side, having a kid isn't like buying a piece of cheap pork, exposing the lazy daughter who doesn't care for her child, mooches off her parents, and still has the nerve to talk back. After this explosive fight, Casey stormed off with Kaylee. From that moment on, no one ever saw the little girl again. Over the next month, Kaylee's grandma tried calling countless times, hoping to talk to her granddaughter. But Casey always had some excuse, never letting her mom speak to Kaylee. The tension and mystery just kept building. On July 15th, a tow company called Kaylee's grandmother, saying that her daughter's car had been sitting in their lot for over 2 weeks, and somebody needed to come get it. Turns out, the car wasn't actually Casey's, despite what the media said, but belonged to Cindy, the grandma. Without her own ride, Casey had borrowed her mom's car, driven it until it ran bone dry, then ditched it at a shopping center, leaving it to get towed away. That car sat there in the impound lot for a long while. When the cops got involved, they decided to hold onto the car for their investigation. The moment they popped the door open, a gut-wrenching foul smell hit them right in the face. Casey's dad, a former cop himself, recognized that stench. It smelled like death. Shaken, he and his wife searched the car, but found nothing. Scared out of their minds, they rushed over to Casey's place late at night, demanding to see their granddaughter ASAP. That's when Casey finally confessed. The kid had been missing for 31 days. After storming out of her parents' house, Casey had moved in with her new boyfriend. Because her daughter's crying and noise got on her nerves, she claimed she left Kaylee with a babysitter. A few days later, she supposedly found out the sitter and the child were both gone. Just like that. No panic, no police call, nothing. As if her own daughter was some disposable add-on she could live without. If the grandparents hadn't shown up demanding answers, who knows if Casey would have even mentioned her kid was missing. The grandparents immediately called the cops. Once officers showed up, they pressed Casey to take them to this babysitter who'd kidnapped the kid. But it became painfully clear that Casey's story was a pile of lies. She claimed she worked at Universal Studios. She said she'd hired a babysitter. She didn't even have enough cash for her own meals. She even pointed at a random woman, insisting that was the sitter. But the woman was like, "I don't know this girl at all." Casey kept spinning tales about her job, the babysitter, everything. Not a single detail was true. When they pushed her about Kaylee's whereabouts, Casey clammed up and demanded a lawyer. Fed up, the cops slapped the cuffs on Casey, charging her with providing false information to law enforcement and child neglect, failing to provide a proper home environment. They also blasted the news all over the media. 2 days later, a well-known criminal defense attorney named Jose Baez stepped up and offered to represent Casey for free. This guy wasn't some nobody. He had 45 cases under his belt, including 5 homicide trials, and not a single client ever got nailed for first-degree murder. One of his most famous wins was a kidnapping case involving a world-famous boxer named Vasquez. The boxer's 2-year-old nephew died during the abduction. The kid had an asthma attack. But Baez worked some serious legal magic, getting his client off the hook for murder and only pleading down to manslaughter. With Baez on board, Casey's case exploded in the media. He was so good at defending alleged child killers that the press started calling him the savior of those who snuff out children's lives. About a week later, with Baez's help, Casey appeared at her first hearing. Normally, defense lawyers lay out what they found and file a straightforward report, even if it's bad news for their client. Once that report is out there, it can't be taken back, and the prosecutors can jump all over it. While Casey was out on bail, the media got their hands on photos of her partying it up after Kaylee went missing. We're talking skimpy outfits, flirting, getting wasted with friends, dancing like there's no tomorrow, basically living it up at bars and with random guys. There wasn't a single snapshot showing a heartbroken mom desperately searching for her child. Instead, she looked like someone thrilled to be free of any baggage, savoring her new no-strings-attached lifestyle. On July 2nd, just 2 weeks after Kaylee vanished, Casey got a tattoo on her shoulder that read Bella Vita, Italian for beautiful life. Under huge public backlash over these photos, Casey tried to spin her story through her lawyer, insisting she missed her kid and was hurting inside, but said partying was her different way of coping. She claimed that drowning herself in booze and wild nights was how she tried to numb the pain. On November 8, 2008, hundreds of volunteers joined a massive search effort, combing through places where Kaylee might be found. The search dragged on for 3 days with no luck. When it all wrapped up, the cops announced they wouldn't give up hope, and they sure as hell wouldn't be signing any death certificate until they found Kaylee, even if the outcome turned out to be grim. But about a month later, everyone had to face the most brutal, heartbreaking reality. Less than a mile from Kaylee's grandparents' home, near a small creek, someone stumbled upon tiny skeletal remains that turned out to belong to Kaylee, the little girl who'd been missing for 6 long months. Along with this horrific discovery, emergency tip lines lit up on the screen. To make matters even more disturbing, the cops found more parts of Kaylee's remains. They'd been wrapped in a child's blanket, stuffed into a black plastic bag, and tossed into the water like garbage. The body had decayed badly and been scavenged by wildlife. During the investigation, the police noticed a piece of silver duct tape near the skull. It looked like the killer might have used it to seal Kaylee's mouth and nose, suffocating her. A search of Casey's computer showed that before Kaylee disappeared, she'd looked up words like chloroform, a known sedative. Some photos revealed that the blanket Kaylee was wrapped in looked exactly like one from Casey's house. Just like that, this went from a missing person case to a full-blown murder investigation. And Casey, she went from facing child neglect charges to staring down a first-degree murder rap. Prosecutors even went so far as to push for the death penalty. You can imagine the grandparents' heartbreak and shock. Their beloved granddaughter had been murdered, and the prime suspect was their own daughter. Their emotional agony was off the charts. While Casey was under house arrest with an ankle monitor strapped on, protesters swarmed outside day and night, waving signs, beating on drums, pounding on doors. Some even showed up at 3 in the morning. The pressure got so intense that Casey's brother had to quit his job just to come home and protect their parents. But the nightmare didn't end there. On January 23, 2009, just over 2 months after Kaylee's remains were found, her grandpa, George, tried to take his own life. He holed up in a hotel room, gulped down a bunch of sleeping pills, and washed them down with strong liquor, hoping to follow his granddaughter into the afterlife. Luckily, a hotel employee found him in time, and he pulled through. But the sight of him later in the hospital, sobbing his heart out in those quiet halls, tore everyone apart. He kept asking the doctors, "Why'd you save me?" That raw, desperate question hung in the air, hitting like a punch to the gut. By May 2010, the Florida courts made a bombshell decision. They gave the green light for the death penalty in this case, and a jury was set to be picked for the trial. On January 4, 2011, the trial officially kicked off. People had been lining up for 24 hours straight, desperate to snag a seat inside. Tickets into the courtroom became hot property. Scalpers even started selling them outside, turning the courthouse steps into a frenzied marketplace. The whole scene was beyond crazy, showing just how much this case had the public in a chokehold. But it didn't stop there. The crowd outside was split into 2 camps. On one side, a huge majority demanded harsh justice, wanting to see a mother punished severely for hurting her own child. On the other side, a smaller group stood by her, and for a mind-blowing reason, they thought she was just too pretty to face the ultimate penalty. In their eyes, someone that beautiful didn't deserve to die no matter what. Attention on the first day of the trial was off the charts. The prosecutor, a sharp-tongued woman, kicked things off, laying out every heartbreaking detail. Her words struck like a hammer. That sweet little girl once lived surrounded by her grandparents' love, and yet, less than a day after her own mother took her away, she was torn from this world. Not only that, her body was tossed aside like trash. What happened next would break anyone's heart. When the screen showed Kaylee's wide, innocent eyes and her angelic smile, the courtroom fell silent. Some female jurors discreetly wiped away tears, but the real shock came when the defense attorney, Jose Baez, stood up. The moment he opened his mouth, everyone froze. "I need to admit something." Kaylee was gone from the very first day she disappeared, and her body was dumped near a ditch by her own mother. The air in that courtroom felt like it had just been shredded by a bomb. People were stunned. He was the defense attorney, so why was he saying this? But then his next words sent a chill through everyone. "You're probably wondering why Casey lied over and over again, even though she knew those lies would eventually blow up in her face. It's because she's been living with a twisted soul, shaped by unimaginable trauma when she was just a child. Casey was abused by her father and brother. So when little Kaylee died in what was truly just a freak accident, Casey's first instinct wasn't to call the cops or turn to her parents for help. Instead, she tried to cover it all up and lie to everyone around her. It's the only way she knew how to survive. Every word from Baez felt like a sledgehammer to the minds of everyone in the room. From that moment on, the trial became a battle of wits and wills. Every detail laid bare. Every emotion stirred up, gripping every single gaze and pulling at every heartstring until the very end. After that opening bombshell, the courtroom went dead silent. Casey just sat there, stone-faced, while her parents and brother looked like they'd turned to statues. Nobody expected the defense to kick things off like that. Nobody thought he'd pull a story like this out of thin air. The prosecution fired back instantly, calling these incest allegations complete nonsense. They played a video of Casey in lockup, where her parents came to visit. On the tape, Casey kept telling them, "You guys are the best grandparents, the best parents in the world. You have to help me." Everyone was in tears, Casey and her folks sobbing through the glass barrier. It looked like a totally normal, loving family scene. So how the hell did we end up with this shocking claim that flipped the family dynamic upside down? Was the defense just bluffing, throwing out wild accusations to shake things up? As risky as this strategy was, you couldn't deny its immediate impact. The jury was left dazed, as if they'd just taken a punch straight to the gut. The defense had cleverly hit the prosecution right where it hurt, the family ties between the defendant and the state's key witnesses. Sure, Casey had royally screwed up by causing her daughter's death. But how could her parents completely turn their backs and push their own flesh and blood toward the electric chair? Even in their anger, Casey was still their kid. That painful conflict boiling inside her parents was the weakness the defense wanted to exploit. By dropping a bombshell this huge, he rattled the entire foundation of the prosecution's case, opening the door for a total game-changer. All it took was one crack in the armor, and the whole thing could come crashing down. But this angle pushed the boundaries of basic human decency. Over the next 2 days of the trial, Casey's father and brother flat out denied any sexual abuse, swearing up and down that since she was 6, they'd never even bathed her. That so-called twisted family relationship? Nothing but a baseless smear. Before the trial started, Casey announced she wouldn't take the stand, meaning the only people who could be grilled under cross-examination were her father and brother. The defense's questions got more aggressive, piling on the humiliation, until Casey's dad and brother went from furious to downright devastated. By the time the father hit his last appearance on the stand, he was sobbing so hard he could barely speak. Eventually, the defense attorney realized pushing further was pointless. Plus, the jury's patience was wearing thin. So they switched tactics and brought in one of Casey's ex-boyfriends. He testified that Casey once told him her brother was into her, and that maybe Kaylee was actually her brother's child. That bombshell prompted Casey's brother to demand a DNA test right away to clear his name. The results came back. He wasn't Kaylee's father. The defense then pressed for a DNA test on Kaylee's grandfather. But by this point, the judge had had enough of this circus and shut that request down. Any claims of some twisted family dynamic ended right there. 3 years after the trial ended, the defense attorney published a book called Presumed Guilty. In it, he openly admitted that as a criminal defense lawyer, his job was to show the jury that something else could have happened. If they believed there was another possible scenario, that planted reasonable doubt. And when you're dealing with a death penalty case, the judge hammers home this point. If you're going to convict, you'd better be damn sure. Absolutely sure. In that state of mind, even a tiny flicker of doubt can tip the scales from guilty to maybe not. This logic showed up again when it came to explaining how Kaylee died. The defense floated a new theory. Maybe Kaylee accidentally drowned while swimming. Where? In the grandparents' pool. The lawyer suggested that Kaylee's death happened right there in the backyard pool at her grandparents' home. To back this up, they pointed to a call Kaylee's grandmother made to the cops the day of the incident. She reported that while she was out, someone broke the lock on their backyard gate and swiped a gas can. When the police asked who she suspected, the grandmother admitted she didn't know. Her daughter hung out with shady people, had just stormed off after a fight, and might have called in some lowlifes to mess with their place. Who else would steal such random stuff? According to the defense, Casey snuck Kaylee back into her parents' yard to swim. The little girl drowned, and Casey freaked out. Panicking and terrified her parents would catch on, Casey supposedly wrapped up Kaylee's cold, lifeless body and dumped it somewhere. Then, to cover her tracks, she snatched the gas can and staged a fake break-in to throw off suspicion. Of course, this explanation, just like those earlier claims about a twisted family dynamic, came with zero solid evidence. It was yet another desperate attempt to spin a story that might poke a hole in the prosecution's case. In the second week of the trial, the prosecution presented a piece of duct tape. Anyone paying close attention would notice it's the same type of tape Kaylee's mom once used to bind up her own chest. This roll of tape, wide enough to cover both Kaylee's mouth and nose, could have caused her to suffocate. The spot where they found it was remote and quiet. No random trash lying around. Just the discarded items left behind after the crime. To the prosecution, that tape looked like the murder weapon. But with so much time having passed and the environment contaminating the evidence, they couldn't find a single trace of DNA or prints from either the victim or the killer. What's more, the autopsy showed no clear signs of trauma to Kaylee's bones, aside from damage caused by scavenging animals, leaving the exact cause of death completely up in the air. Even the medical experts for both sides had to agree. They didn't know for sure how she died. Sure, there was duct tape, but without Kaylee's DNA on it, no one could say for certain it had been used to smother her. As mentioned before, hundreds of volunteers had searched high and low for Kaylee, but came up empty-handed. So how did they finally stumble upon her remains? A phone line repairman, who'd occasionally check on telephone cables, claimed that after Kaylee Anthony vanished, he was out inspecting lines and thought he saw what looked like a child's body. He called the cops, but they came out and said there was nothing there. The guy figured maybe he was mistaken, but sometime later he went back, told the police he'd reported this before, and sure enough, when they checked the call logs, he was telling the truth. He insisted the remains were still there. That's how they finally found Kaylee's skeleton. Another big piece of evidence was the rank odor inside a car. Cops said it smelled like decomposing organic matter, but they couldn't confirm if Kaylee's body had ever been inside. They did find the victim's hair and DNA in the vehicle, but that didn't prove when or how they got there, before or after she died. To complicate things further, they found 2 garbage bags in the car, each stuffed with over 100 random items, including sanitary pads, spit, and cigarette butts. It was a chaotic mess, adding more questions than answers. She'd been chewing gum, spitting it out, half-eating a pizza slice. These 2 garbage bags were full of all sorts of nastiness, crawling with maggots and bacteria. So maybe that rotten smell in the car wasn't from a body at all. Maybe it was just decomposing trash. Even the prosecutors eventually admitted that the stink wasn't necessarily human decomposition. Police experts said they found unusually high levels of chloroform in the car's air samples. Remember when the cops discovered KC had looked up chloroform on her computer? Their theory? KC used chloroform to knock her kid out, suffocate her, then dump the body. This would explain why there were no obvious signs of trauma on the remains. But the defense argued that the computer in Casey's mom's house was out in the living room, where anyone in the family could have jumped online. There was no proof it was KC doing the Googling. And here's where things got wild. Kaylee's grandmother, Cindy, took the stand and claimed she was the one who searched for chloroform. She said she was a nurse and a patient had asked about chloroform's toxicity. But this story fell apart fast. The clinic where Cindy worked gave the court her time records, proving that when chloroform popped up in that browser history, Cindy was on the clock at her job, not at home surfing the web. So why did Grandma suddenly lie on the stand? Maybe she really fell for the defense's divide and conquer trick, making her suspect her own husband and son. All we know is that Grandma became the first weak link snapped in this trial. Either way, her little stunt gave the defense an opening. Don't just call our client a liar. Your own witnesses can't keep their story straight. The defendant grew up in this kind of environment. If you doubt her, we have every reason to doubt your witnesses too. When you zoom out, there's no clear motive here. Sure, she acted cold, cruel, and heartless after it all went down. But that alone doesn't prove murder. The prosecution's star witness was exposed as a liar. And the biggest problem remained. They had no slam-dunk physical evidence linking the defendant to Kaylee's death. No solid DNA. No airtight witness testimony. No confirmed cause of death. Nothing. Still, even with all that, a post-trial survey showed that 91% of people thought Casey was guilty. A higher percentage than even the O.J. Simpson case. But the 12 people on that jury didn't see it that way. After a long, closed-door deliberation, they delivered a verdict that shook the nation. Not guilty of first-degree murder. Not guilty of aggravated child manslaughter. In the end, Casey only got nailed on 4 counts of obstructing the investigation and giving false information. This sparked outrage across the nation. Many people were furious, saying things like, "It's obvious she's guilty. How could the court let her off?" And blaming the legal system for allowing her to walk free. Because Casey had already served time before the trial wrapped up. She walked free on July 17, 2012. This verdict triggered a massive backlash against the jurors. Some people went so far as to create websites and Facebook pages to publicly shame them. Many saw this outcome as a complete disgrace, letting a woman who, they believed, killed her own daughter back into the world. Ever since, Casey's been treated like public enemy number 1, facing hatred and insults pretty much anywhere she goes. After the case, Casey hooked up with a private investigator, some guy more than 35 years older than her, in his 60s, and he bankrolled her new venture, a family photo studio. Just imagine booking a family photo shoot and realizing the person behind the camera is Casey Anthony. The thought alone would make plenty of people's skin crawl. As for the Anthony family, they vanished from the public eye for a long time after the trial. Casey's brother once swore he'd never set foot in that house again because of all the painful memories. But by 2015, after having his own son, he made peace with his parents. Still, all three of them claim they have no idea where Casey is now. They don't want to know. So that's the end of today's story. What really sets this case apart is how Casey behaved after her daughter went missing. Her cold, indifferent attitude and constant lying outraged the public. Even though the law couldn't pin a murder charge on her, in the court of public opinion, Casey's basically guilty forever. This shows how someone can be legally off the hook, but still branded and shunned by society for years to come. At the same time, this verdict is a stark reminder of the justice system's core principle: innocent until proven guilty. Without solid evidence, locking someone up can set a dangerous precedent where raw emotion trumps reason and fairness. This case taught us tough lessons, not just about how we investigate and prosecute crimes, but about our responsibility as a society to handle these sensitive, complex situations. Story 2. This story focuses on a Ukrainian model who traveled thousands of miles to America to chase her dreams. Thought she had found a wealthy boyfriend and even the fruit of their love, marking the start of a happy life. Little did she know, everything would come to a tragic end, brutally taken away in a single night. The complete barbarity of the murder, its shocking brutality, is similar to even the infamous Black Dahlia case. This crime would become known as one of the most brutal and cold-blooded in the history of Los Angeles. Let's go back to 2016 and check out the terrible events of that year. What exactly happened and what made the perpetrator do such crazy violence? Los Angeles, a big city in Southern California, the second largest city in the United States, and a center of business, money, and culture. Most people know it as the home of Hollywood, where lots of great films were made that have wowed audiences worldwide and have inspired generations of filmmakers. The story we're about to delve into today took place in this bustling metropolis, famously known as the City of Angels. Diana Cashin, a 30-year-old model living in Los Angeles, had amazing dark eyes and long black hair. Born on January 27, 1986, into a working-class family in Kiev, Ukraine, little is known about her childhood, other than she was known for her kindness and gentle nature. Bright and intelligent from a young age, her parents put a lot of importance on her education, spending lots of money on Diana's academics. Diana's hard work and dedication worked out well. She got a law degree and found a stable job at the state tax authority. Even while studying law, Diana had a passion for fashion and modeling. After all, Ukraine is known for its stunning women and internationally famous supermodels, an environment that naturally draws many young women to the industry. Having good looks and a great figure, Diana frequently walked on the runways in her spare time. Despite the intense competition in a country full of beauties, she achieved significant success, her star steadily rising in the modeling world. A promising career and a lively life in Ukraine were certainly attractive, but Diana had bigger dreams. Deep in her heart, she nurtured a bigger dream, longing for a grander stage and a life filled with greater challenges. The destination of that dream was none other than America. In 2014, at the age of 28, Diana finally took the plunge, starting the journey to go after her old ambition. She landed in the amazing city of Los Angeles, a mecca for entertainment, film, culture, and art. The perfect place to start her modeling career. The endless beaches and the California sunshine charmed her. Diana promised to make this city her home, to build a life and a family there. With years of runway experience with her, she quickly found modeling work and her career began to get steady. Some reports suggest she initially worked as a translator, but regardless of the details, she quickly got a start in Hollywood. For Diana, the picture of her life was nearly complete. All that was missing was love. Finding her Prince Charming would make everything perfect. As fate would have it, love showed up in an unexpected way. At a party, Diana's eye was caught by a man named Blake. He wore glasses, sat quietly in a corner and seemed quiet, almost away from the energetic atmosphere around him. Yet a spark started between them and they quickly fell in love, their whirlwind romance ending with an engagement. Yana was super happy. Blake wasn't just a well-off young man. He was also talented and really dedicated to her. Soon, their happiness multiplied with the birth of their beautiful daughter, Diana. To help with childcare, Yana brought her mother, Olga, from Ukraine to Los Angeles. Olga, careful about giving the young couple space, rented her own apartment nearby. With a loving fiancé, an adorable daughter, a home, a car, and financial security, Iyana's life seemed perfect. Everything was perfect. Her sweet, happy life had just begun. But tragedy happened unexpectedly. On May 25, 2016, a wave of worry washed over Olga when she couldn't reach her daughter. Yana wasn't answering her phone or responding to texts, which was super weird. Worried, she asked a friend to go with her to Iyana's West Hollywood apartment, located in a complex on the 8500 block of Holloway Drive. They found Iyana's car in the garage, but despite many knocks, no one answered the door. Looking through a ground-floor balcony window, Olga could just make out the outline of a man inside. It looked like Blake. She called out to him, but he simply ignored her and closed the blinds. Increasingly freaked out, Olga called the police. 2 officers from the Los Angeles Police Department quickly showed up on the scene. They knocked several times, but with no response from within, they explained they couldn't simply break in. Instead, they called the building manager to get Blake's phone number. However, their calls went straight to voicemail. With no immediate cause for forced entry, the officers left, the situation seemingly at a standstill. Upset and heartbroken, Olga sent a really worried text to her daughter. "My dear daughter, are you alive? I came to your apartment, but no one opened the door. Please answer me. I know he's keeping you there. I've called the police." After receiving no reply, she contacted the police again. This time, upon getting there and finding the apartment still not answering, the officers realized the possible seriousness of the situation. The lead officer noted a weird detail. Yana's phone had been used to order food online at 1:48 a.m. on the 25th and again at 3 a.m. on the 26th. Security footage showed someone inside the apartment getting the deliveries. This was really disturbing. Someone was clearly inside. Why wouldn't they answer the door or the phone? Neighbors confirmed they hadn't seen anyone enter or leave the apartment in 2 days. Combined with Olga's worries, a scary suspicion began to form. Blake had done something awful to Yana inside the apartment. With no time to lose, the officers called the building manager for a spare key. But upon trying to open the door, they found it locked from the inside, impossible to open normally. Left with no other option, the officers chose to break in. They busted the door, running into a darkened apartment. Carefully, they entered, searching the living room, dining room, kitchen, balcony, and common areas, but found nothing out of place. Only the 2 bedrooms remained. Trying the door to the spare bedroom, they discovered it blocked with a mattress, a clear sign that someone was on purpose preventing access. Not giving up, the officers forced the door open. The room was empty, but in a creepy way, they found what appeared to be red stains on the headboard. The officers right away knew something was wrong. They rushed to the master bedroom, the door of which was also locked from the inside. The lead officer kicked it open, only to find it too, blocked with a mattress and other furniture. He called out. A man's low voice called out from inside, "What do you want?" The officers immediately knew it was Blake. Knowing that breaking in could push him into doing something stupid, they held back, trying to talk to him in a calm conversation. "We're just here to check on Yana, nothing else. You don't need to worry," an officer told him. Blake replied, "My girlfriend is sick. She's at Cedars-Sinai Hospital." He even gave a room number. The officers, of course, didn't buy it, but Blake refused to come out or help further. Worried for Yana's safety, they couldn't risk a forced entry. A tight standoff ensued. At this point, a negotiator, a familiar figure in Hollywood crime dramas, was called in. However, this negotiator wasn't a police specialist. It was Green, Blake's friend and accountant. After some friendly conversation with Green, Blake finally emerged from the bedroom. He wore only a pair of white briefs, looking messed up, with scratches and bruises on his face, fighting wounds on his arms, and bite marks on his left chin and arm. A struggle had clearly happened. The police immediately took down Blake and entered the bedroom. Upon stepping inside, an officer cried out in horror. The source of the officer's horror was Iana. She lay still, lifeless. The forensic examination revealed a scene of unspeakable horror. Iana had been almost completely drained of blood. Her skin, palate, 80% of her scalp was missing, along with one ear. The remaining details are too gruesome to describe. The injuries were horrific, almost beyond comprehension. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, resulting in massive blood loss from severed arteries and veins. Time of death was estimated to be at least 10 hours prior. The coroner concluded that after the initial attack, Iana had endured an agonizing 68 hours of torture, brutality comparable to the most horrific crimes imaginable. The thought was sickening. The coroner, a seasoned professional, stated, "In my nearly 30-year career, I have never seen anything this brutal. I don't believe there's another forensic pathologist or forensic investigator in the country, or even internationally, that has encountered anything similar. This is an exceptionally heinous and rare case." Inside the apartment, investigators found a wealth of evidence. Bloodstains on the mattress, headboard, carpet, towels, and curtains. The master bathroom's bathtub showed traces of red stains and hair, and the trash contained a razor with similar stains and hair. It was clear this apartment was the primary crime scene. The sparse amount of visible blood suggested a significant cleanup attempt. Using luminol, investigators discovered a plethora of additional bloodstains on the bedroom carpet near the bed and in the bathroom. Based on the evidence and Iana's exsanguinated state, investigators theorized she had been dragged from the bedroom to the bathroom tub, where she was likely drained of her blood. Outside the building, in a public dumpster, police found 11 garbage bags filled with blood-soaked towels, sheets, and bedding. One sheet had a clear bloody handprint, and even more creepy, an ear and other body parts were also found. DNA testing showed that all the blood and remains were Iana's. As for the person who did this horrible crime, there was little doubt it was her boyfriend, Blake. Though he had clearly showered and tried to clean himself, the bite marks on his body and the skin bits under his fingernails were a match for Iana's DNA. On the other hand, tissue belonging to Blake was found under Iana's fingernails. The bloody right hand print on the sheet had a finger partly missing, matching Blake's own finger partly cut off. Combined with the other evidence, Blake's guilt was obvious. But what drove him to do such an unthinkable act of violence against his girlfriend? Blake, full name Blake Liebel, was born in Ontario, Canada in 1981. He wasn't just anyone. His father, Lorne, was a well-known real estate tycoon in Canada, whose development company was once among the richest in the country. Lorne was also an Olympic sailor and one of the guys in the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. Blake's mother, Eleanor, came from lots of wealth herself. Her family founded a good plastics company with a global reach. In short, Blake was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. It seemed with unlimited funds at his disposal. But wealth doesn't always equal happiness. While Blake was still young, his parents split up due to major differences. Afterward, Blake lived with his mother, while his older brother, Cody, lived with their father. This separation likely led to a bad relationship between Blake and his father, a rift that would continue to widen. After graduating from college in 2004, Blake moved to Los Angeles. While he received a big allowance from his family, enough to live comfortably without working, he wanted to build his own career. Drawn to Los Angeles's thriving film industry, he decided to make his mark there. Fortunately, Blake wasn't without talent. From a young age, he had a passion for video games and comic books, doing related studies in school. In 2008, Blake helped out with the production of the animated series Spaceballs 2008. In 2009, he made the comedy film Bald 2009. And in 2010, he put out a dark graphic novel titled Syndrome. During his Hollywood years, Blake wasn't lazy. He built a good career, becoming a known director and novelist. Of course, his personal life was also busy. In 2006, Blake met Amanda, a model described by friends as a pea party girl. Amanda was always in the Hollywood social scene. It was at one of these parties that she met Blake. He was a weird character, enjoying the nightlife, yet maintaining a quiet, almost shy demeanor at these gatherings. This made Amanda curious, and she found herself drawn to him. They quickly became a couple. Friends, however, were unsure of the match. Amanda loved the party scene while Blake preferred staying home. It seemed like they were just not compatible. In 2011, Amanda became pregnant, and they decided to get married, registering their marriage. The birth of their child brought a brief period of joy to their small family. However, the differences in personality they had once ignored were bigger by the realities of everyday life. Arguments became often caused by their not compatible. Both started realizing that their friends' first worries were valid. Perhaps they were never meant to be together. They separated, though they never officially divorced. That same year, Blake passed away from cancer, leaving behind an amount of money worth 12 million Canadian dollars. Blake thought he would get a big portion, but to his surprise, Hurwell said he received only a few million, the bulk of the money going to his father and brother. Blake was deeply suspicious, questioning if the will was for real and accusing his father of manipulation. But his efforts led nowhere. The incident made a deep anger towards his father, making the hatred between them. Their relationship became forever fractured. Around this same time, Blake met Iana, the Ukrainian model, and their relationship quickly sped up. Blake, on purpose, hid the fact that he was married. When Iana found out the truth, he claimed to be about to get a divorce from his wife, and to be fair, he was. In July 2015, despite Amanda being pregnant with their second child and nearing her due date, Blake started divorce proceedings and moved out. By August, Iana was pregnant as well. Events were happening fast, he wasn't wasting any time. Iana moved into Blake's West Hollywood apartment, settling in for her pregnancy. She was excited with the relationship. Blake seemed to be the perfect boyfriend, a rich young man who loved her a lot, giving her with gifts like a Mercedes, a diamond ring, and a new home. Add to that the thought of their child, and the future seemed incredibly bright. Iana had achieved her dream of marrying and having a child in America. In April 2016, Iana's mother, Olga, came from Ukraine to help with the baby. Iana was born on May 3rd. To give the new parents space, Olga got a nearby apartment, staying close to help with her granddaughter. Everything seemed perfect, at least at first. Just 2 weeks later, however, Iana made a police report, saying Blake did domestic violence. On the surface, it would seem this incident showed the beginning of their conflict. However, the police felt it wasn't enough to explain such a brutal act of violence. Plus, Blake's friends described him as someone with no prior criminal record, a rich background, and a large amount of money, someone who looked like he had no reason to throw his life away. After his arrest, Blake maintained he was not guilty, strongly denying any part in Iana's death, even claiming that science would free him. Yet, tons of evidence at the crime scene clearly showed he did it. There was no one else. So, what was the real story behind this horrible crime? As the investigation went on and information was picked up from many sources, particularly from conversations between Iana and her mother before the murder, a different side of Blake emerged, one that was really different with the image given by his friends. Turned out that both Blake and his brother, Cody, had been into betting for years. Cody was a high roller, a professional gambler, who at times won and lost millions of dollars. As the saying goes, the house always wins, and Cody was no exception, eventually getting significant debts. His betting debts put him with some dangerous individuals, a situation that made Blake fear the results for his family. In addition to betting, Blake had trouble with addiction to marijuana and other stuff. He was prone to being angry at both his ex-wife and Iana, followed by apologies with regrets and requests for forgiveness. The tension in Blake and Iana's relationship got much worse during her pregnancy, which made her decide to bring her mother to Los Angeles. Iana really valued the relationship and hoped to get back their closeness by having some dedicated time alone together. This plan, however, failed bad. In the weeks following Diana's birth, Blake's mental state got a lot worse. He became increasingly cranky, often drawing the curtains and smoking non-stop day and night, filling their apartment with a thick fog. He showed little interest in his newborn daughter, even expressing hate and anger towards her. He was mad at the baby for taking Iana's attention away from him, leaving him feeling alone and ignored. Thinking only about his own physical needs and wants, he pushed Iana for sex just days after she'd given birth. He even made a scary threat. "If you don't have sex with me, I'm going to up the interaction with you." The investigation also found a crazy reveal. During Iana's pregnancy, Blake had been with at least 3 women at the same time. Besides his ex-wife, Amanda, he was also seeing a woman named Bucky Florio. Florio said that during her first date with Blake, he attacked her, giving her a sexually transmitted disease. She then sued him. Shockingly, she later not only forgave him, but they also began a secret affair. To help this hidden relationship, Blake set Florio up in a separate apartment, all while keeping in close contact with his ex-wife, Amanda. Iana's mother, Olga, told investigators that despite her short time in Los Angeles, she quickly saw Blake was bossy and harmful. She pushed her daughter to leave him and move in with her. But for reasons Olga couldn't understand, Iana kept returning to Blake. She seemed unable or didn't want to let go of the relationship. Just 2 days before her murder, Iana had been shopping with her mother at the mall when a text message from Blake came. Iana immediately became restless and worried, leaving to meet him. No one could have imagined that this would be the last time they'd see her. The prosecutor argued that Blake's reason came from jealousy and anger towards their newborn child. They believed the baby's arrival made him feel like he was losing power over Iana, setting off a violent outburst. But was he truly so nuts that he would risk his looked-like-perfect life and murder his girlfriend in a fit of rage? Plus, the carefully planned violence of the crime suggested not the actions of an amateur, but the well-planned work of a skilled killer. On this point, investigators soon found a troubling answer. Remember how we mentioned Blake was a novelist? In 2010, he published a dark graphic novel titled Syndrome. The book is really disturbing, filled with graphic violence and creepy imagery. The cover shows a doll with its scalp ripped off. The story begins with the question, "If you loved hurting things, what would you do?" and ends with the scary line, "In the end, we all become monsters," accompanied by an image of a blood-soaked hand. Scarily, details of Iana's murder were like scenes from this graphic novel. One illustration shows a woman lying on a blood-soaked bed, her scalp completely removed. Blake's friends also said his longtime interest in true crime, particularly super gross murder stories. This big dark fascination was part of his work in Hollywood, affecting both his films and his writing. It's possible another motive was a messed-up desire to bring his fictional horrors to life. Blake even planned an escape. After the murder, he really carefully cleaned the apartment and hid $4,000 in cash and his passport in his pants. If it weren't for Olga's never giving up and lots of calls to the police, he might have got away to Canada. In June 2018, after nearly 2 years of major investigation, this horrible and highly known about Hollywood murder case finally went to trial. Blake appeared in court much fatter, a showing of the relatively easy life he'd led while awaiting trial in jail. He continued to plead not guilty, just as he had since his arrest. During the trial, he tried to use an insanity plea to delay proceedings. However, a mind check found him able to stand trial. The 6-day trial saw the prosecution call 14 witnesses and present a lot of physical evidence. Blake's guilt was obvious. The prosecutor argued that meanness of Blake's actions and the super big violence he did were beyond words, beyond anything human. He had carefully planned this evil murder, like scenes from his own graphic novel. Syndrome, the medical examiner spoke, saying the horrible nature of the crime and stating that the cruelty and range of Iana's injuries were like never seen before. On June 26th, the jury talked for only 3 hours before giving back a fully agreed upon guilty verdict. The judge called Blake guilty of first-degree murder, torture, and other charges, giving him life in prison without the chance of parole. Upon hearing the verdict, Olga wept openly, a moment of release after years of painful waiting. Holding tight a photograph of her daughter, she cried, surprisingly, despite Blake's rich life and family connections, only his brother Cody went to the trial. The rest of his family seemed to have kept their distance, undoubtedly feeling bad and awful about his actions. The custody of baby Diana also became a point of arguing. Although Blake's daughter, she was allowed to get some money from his estate. At the end, however, Olga won custody. Though Iana had dreamt of her daughter growing up in America, her sad death, together with Olga's not able to support herself in the U.S., forced her to go back to Ukraine with Diana. In a next civil lawsuit against Blake, the judge gave Olga $41.6 million in payments for the loss of her daughter and the cost of raising Diana. However, Olga stated that she never got this payment. Rumors later went around that Blake's family, trying to help the mess, reached a private agreement with Olga for an unknown sum. Finally, it's worth saying that Iana's sad story might have been stopped. Her mother felt something was terribly wrong from the start, and considering the coroner's time that he had guessed death was, it's very possible that Iana was still alive when Olga first called the police. Sadly, the first police response wasn't good enough, which made a lost opportunity for rescue. Another heartbreaking detail, during her struggle with Blake and the long-lasting torture she had to deal with, Iana made a lot of noise and cried out for help. In next interviews, several neighbors said they heard a woman's screams, but they didn't tell the police, choosing instead to keep quiet. This not caring, this not doing anything, could have cost Iana her life, leaving her to suffer a horrible and painful death. Story 3. This young woman was Kilia Posey, born on April 19, 2006, in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Perhaps her name isn't immediately familiar, but I'm sure many of you will know this meme, her super viral expression. However, on May 2, 2022, at the young age of just 16, this adorable girl, known for that famous meme, sadly killed herself. At 1:26 p.m. on May 2nd, the Whatcom County Sheriff's Department in Washington got a call saying a deceased young woman was found inside a vehicle. The car was at Birch Bay State Park in the city of Blaine, Whatcom County. Upon arriving, cops made sure the young woman's identity was 16-year-old Kilia Posey, a high school student from the city of Linden, Whatcom County, and right away told her family. The following day, Kilia's mother, Marcy, posted an official post on Facebook telling the heartbreaking news of Kilia's death. The post included a picture of Kilia taken at her high school prom the week before. That same day, Kilia's family made an official statement to the press. It said how Kilia had taken part in lots of beauty pageants throughout her life, getting a number of crowns and trophies. She was also a talented contortionist and had went around with a professional troupe. Recently turned 16, she was newly selected to be on her school's cheerleading squad. With a love for aviation, alongside a desire to work in entertainment, she had recently begun training to become a professional pilot. Sadly, despite being a really promising young woman with a clearly bright future ahead of her, following a sudden and not well-thought-out decision, she ended her life. In order to keep the personal life private of the victim and not disrespect the family of the family, cops did not give a bunch of info on autopsy findings. However, it can be clearly said that the reason why she died was suffocating due to being strangled. In other words, Kilia on purpose took her own life within her vehicle. This beautiful teenage girl with her looked like unlimited ability. Who was she really? And what awful reasons drove her to this final act? Kilia's mother, Marcy, was a model in her youth. She walked the stage, worked as a flight attendant, and was a dance instructor. Kilia was her daughter with her second husband. Perhaps because of Marcy's own love for looking nice, before Kilia was even born, she decided that if she had a daughter, she would definitely get her into beauty pageants. Children's beauty pageants typically require contestants to show a specific talent, singing, dancing, and so forth. Kilia's mother focused on contortion. As is widely understood, achieving the maximum level of flexibility makes artists start very intense training from a very young age, going through lots of pain. However, have you ever heard of a baby whose mother started her on stretching exercises at 1 month old? starting a plan of full contortion practice at merely 3 months. According to Kilia's mother, she had decided before Kilia was born that her daughter would be a contortionist. Accordingly, as soon as Kilia turned 1 month old, she began her training. Kilia didn't disappoint. At the age of 5, she captivated the judges with her spirited nature, charm, and incredible flexibility. By 10, she was performing positions that left audiences in awe. Although just a child, she had become an artist. Comparable to a stage was a product of tears and sweat behind the scenes. While other children enjoyed playtime and cherished a carefree childhood, little Kilia had to train. Besides contortion, her mother also invested in dance lessons, acting classes, and lavished money on makeup and clothing for her daughter. All of this effort was for one purpose: to get her prepared for those beauty pageants. From 2009, when Kilia was 3 years old, her mother, Marcy, signed her for every kind of beauty pageant you could imagine. On stage, Kilia wore various super colorful dresses, showed off on many different platforms, and from a very young age, learned the professional smile of a beauty queen. After each victory, she would wear her crown with prize money, turning to the camera with a very proud expression. In 2011, Marcy brought Kilia, then 5.5 years old, onto a television program. On the show, Kilia got audience favor with her energetic, cute nature and good contortion abilities. After this, she became even more popular, thanks to her funny self-introduction. When asked why she liked being in beauty pageants, her honest 5-year-old Kilia responded without any weight, "Because I love winning. I love winning lots of money." This program, which helped Kilia to fame, was none other than the super talked about reality TV show, Toddlers and Tiaras. This show showed to many viewers that beneath the fancy look of beauty pageants, the harsh survival rules of the adult world and messed up social values had already gotten into the kind of pure and innocent world of childhood. Toddlers and Tiaras was an American reality TV show made by TLC, which first aired on January 27, 2009. After 7 seasons and a total of 120 episodes, the program stopped broadcasting in October of 2016. Over those 7 years, the show showed the beauty pageant adventures of tons of young girls under the age of 10 from across the United States. These young girls from a very young age had to go from place to compete, getting instruction and training from coaches, wearing a lot of makeup by their parents, and striking poses on stage with various weird forms. The outfits often seen in adult beauty pageants, such as strapless evening gowns, super tight dresses, and even tiny minis, fishnet stockings, and bikinis were all normal in children's beauty competitions, beyond clothes that had to be totally hot. The children also had to wear false eyelashes, wigs, and heavy makeup to make better their look on stage. Thick eyeliner, bright lipstick, spray tans, curled or dyed hair, even the use of fake teeth to get noticed were all over the place. Some coaches and mothers even sewed thick padding into the swimsuits of young girls to give them shapes that looked like grown women. Another mother took it to a different extreme in an attempt to look like Marilyn Monroe by padding her daughter's chest and butt. To keep their children's energy throughout the long filming times, some mothers did not wait to give their kids beauty drinks, a mixed energy drink prepared with Red Bull, to get a high placing in the super competitive talent part, besides making their kids to practice a lot. Some parents taught their children to wear showing a lot of skin clothing and do sexy routines with suggesting moves made to entertain the judges and the audience. Beyond these bad stuff, what is most creepy is the thing of cosmetic surgery on children. Yet, in reality, this had already become a usual thing within the world of children's beauty competitions. In 2011, ABC News said on a mother named Carrie who had given her daughter Brittany Botox injections from the age of 8, trying to get rid of any tiny wrinkles on her face. When asked on Good Morning America, Brittany protected her mother and said that it was she herself who wanted to get the Botox injections. With her young voice, she answered when asked if Botox was painful by saying that yes, it was, but she had gotten used to it. Carrie stated that other mothers in the pageant circuit told her that Brittany's wrinkles were ugly, and further added that since many beauty pageant mothers gave their own daughters Botox injections, so it seemed normal to give them to her daughter too. Asked doctors said and gave warning that Botox is not right for young people under the age of 18 because their bones and muscle stuff are not yet fully grown. Giving Botox at this stage could very likely cause face deformity. Also, Children involved in beauty pageants must also follow very specific diets while also having constant talk about their looks. As children's milk teeth start to become loose, mothers will have their kids wear custom dentures to make sure they keep super smiles. It could be said that these children, from their hair to their eyelashes, from their skin to their teeth, were basically fake. In order to please the messed up ideas of adults, they had no say over their own childhood. Instead, they could only do what others wanted for their lives, being treated like dolls to be made up and showed on stage, to be displayed and looked at like things. All of this served to make happen the big ego and the want to always win of their parents. In fact, when the show first started, it was met with lots of hate. However, at the time, the action against child exploitation had not yet become an issue shunned by main media, and public understanding of children's mental problems was still very small. As a result of this, the show continued to get very high viewership. In this way, messed up values, hidden by entertainment, gotten into normal households. Now, with the telling everyone of Kilia's death, public anger has exploded. While no clear proof right now says that her killing herself was directly tied to her childhood experiences in beauty pageants, it has pushed the question of whether children's beauty pageants should be banned into the most talked about topic. So, where did these children's beauty pageants come from, and why do they continue to be here? Within the United States, children's beauty pageants are an insanely profitable industry with a long history. The first American children's beauty pageant can be followed back to 1855, when a circus manager named Phineas T. Barnum organized a children's beauty contest called the National Baby Show, getting 143 child contestants and 61,000 spectators. In 1904, Thomas Edison filmed an annual children's beauty parade held in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Since that point, the tide of children's beauty pageants continued to grow, expanding throughout all of America. From big cities to small towns, more than 50,000 children's beauty pageants happen each year within the USA, getting over 250,000 participants. They've changed into a huge industry that makes over $5 billion in money. Usually, children's beauty contests are separated into different age groups, and in style are generally sorted into two primary ways of thinking. The natural way keeps very specific rules regarding contestants' outfits and makeup, not allowing heavy makeup and too much showing skin clothing, supporting just simple style. On the other hand, the glitz way lets you have long hair, heavy makeup, spray tans, fake teeth, acrylic nails, with no rules to how to be on stage. The bad things we've previously looked at were mostly seen within glitz-style pageants. However, due to having more exciting entertainment as well as having made stronger looks, this way tends to be dominant. The how to judge and what you have to follow rules are different per contest, and the types often go from sports outfits, swimwear, evening gowns, talent performance, posing routines, and so on. The talent parts usually end at 2 minutes, whereas the posing parts have been limited to 90 seconds. Simply for these few quick moments, parents of going against children not only spend a bunch of time and energy, but must make really high financial spends as well. Depending on the size of the contest, some contests require a to-join payment up to $500. Buying clothes and makeup for the kids also adds up to a lot of spendings, as does hiring professional pageant coaches to train them. Cosmetic surgery for the children requires payment. Going to big-time beauty pageants might possibly use up to $5,000 per competition. One mother featured on Toddlers and Tiaras showed that even upon winning, prizes often were just of trophies, toys, crowns, sashes, etc. Cash prizes at highest pageants were just a few $1,000s, kind of not equal to the massive funds parents had invested. So then, beyond just wanting big ego themselves, what pushed parents to go to these competitions? Pretty simple. It's because getting championship titles in children's beauty pageants often is the same as getting attention from the media, entertainment companies, modeling agencies, and other money sources. Changing into big fame and could make lots of organizers of big-time beauty pageants have powerful connections. Their partners could most likely have famous figures from the entertainment industry like HBO, BBC, People magazine, and so on. For instance, Universal Royalty, the organizer of the biggest children's beauty pageant organization in the USA currently, based in Austin, Texas, has a partner list that is full of programs that the American audience will know. Picture the amount of public notice the champions would acquire. If they're lucky, they might get a fast ticket to success. The most perfect example is Isabella Barrett from Toddlers and Tiaras. Born in 2006 and coming from a regular family, she was just 5 years old when filming started for the show. Having started competing in beauty pageants from age 3, she had won many trophies and champion titles. In 2012, at 6 years old, she won the title of Little Miss America, then getting the attention of filmmakers starting film and TV acting projects. At 9 years old, she was already a millionaire, wore high-end designer heels, and took her private car to elementary school. At age 16 currently, she has taken on many parts, being a maker of her own cosmetic and fashion brands, as well as being an online personality and actor, even when not making it big in the entertainment world like Isabella. Becoming a child model isn't out of the question. A professional child model can possibly get booked for 2 to 3 brands daily, around 200 articles of clothing each day, and stories of child models earning $4,000 to $5,000 a day or millions of dollars a year are no longer considered rare. In compare to the situation of parents bringing up children within normal families, within some families of famous child models, the children become their parents' providers. This helps explain why a big number of parents are okay to take on debt in order to put money into their children's beauty pageant careers. The talk on whether to ban children's beauty pageants is a very present talked about topic. Those that say yes argue that young girls like dressing up, putting on pretty dresses, and wearing high-heeled shoes. Therefore, beauty pageants fit the normal way of young girls. They think that beauty pageants are no different than music and art competitions. By being in these activities, children make better social skills, form bonds with other peers, and boost feeling good about themselves. At the same time, the training on stage helps them in staying tall and helps conquer being nervous on stage. They're also better ready to learn how to approach winning or losing with pride. Plus, children will also learn basic rules of fairness and how to behave well and eventually to stay chill in public. They will then make into habit continuing when faced with failures, which then pushes further tries at other competitions. Finally, when doing good, they'll see what they had done before was well spent. However, a lot of critics say that children's beauty pageants hurt a child's mental and physical well-being and even can be called child abuse and using people. Among these critics are a variety of academics and professionals within the field of child psychology. As early as 2007, the American Psychological Association showed in a report that beauty pageants cause young girls to see themselves as things to be looked at by others, also causing them to get wrong ideas that how much they are worth depends mostly on how they look. These young girls eventually go through a process of looking at themselves and in order to give their self-value, rely upon rules that are too much, sometimes even unachievable. They push themselves into messed up and making limit standards. Studies have shown that teenagers with a higher level of looking at themselves tend to be at more risks for anxiety and depression, face more tendencies for eating disorders and falling into very negative feelings of self-doubt. Beauty pageants do not promote real beauty at all but promote restricting ideas regarding womanhood as well as showing off not real values. Children that lack mature decision-making skills are easily harmed by these negative influences. Children begin to see a same when getting praise is equal as when looking like a perfect doll. Within toddlers and tiaras, it's easy to see how a lot of children were made by their parents to do things they did not want to do. For instance, to get the best eyebrow shapes, a mother let a makeup artist use hot wax on her 5-year-old daughter, which caused to accidentally rub the girl's sensitive skin. Although the little girl was crying and pleading her mother to stop waxing despite her reddened small face, the mother said that in order to be in a beauty pageant, her daughter must be truly beautiful. This mother further explained how she would hold down her daughter while forcing waxing. Another mother was even more controlling. When her daughter didn't want to wear false eyelashes due to being uncomfortable, she told her daughter that she'd be given a kitten if she did it. As for the parents we've talked about previously, those who gave their children cosmetic surgery, it's not clear whether this was due to not knowing or really high wanting to win. But they completely ignored the bad side of such surgeries on their children's bodies. Some think these actions were just child using people and harm. The parenting way of these adults was absolutely wrong. Yet others imply that these parents from the start didn't see their children as independent people deserving of respect, but instead put their own want onto them. By having their children be in contests to get awards, these adults felt indirectly a sense of success, thereby filling their own big egos. Through this point of view, the children simply became dolls they can control as they want and showcase them as objects. Would the lives of children who've been raised this way be actually okay? Beyond seeing children as objects, experts have also noted that these styles of beauty contests also really make bad young people. Because of very strong competition and not specific rules, parents have used any way they could find to gain the spotlight. Putting chest and butt padding onto children of only a few years old, having children wear tops that shows their chests or bikinis, as well as wearing sexually wanting attention fishnet tights, or making hinting dance routines. These things, already discussed, were good examples of their ways. Even if those were said to not be right by other people, that they found these acts to be inappropriate, or the choreography gross, the parents were not affected by their words, only caring about winning the contest itself. This behavior is not only a bad service to their child's development, but much more sinister. It provided a chance for perverted creeps who hid behind their TV and computer screens with extreme enjoyment. Those types of acts on stage for a young minor were same to fuel to those monsters and these contests, simply known as hunting grounds. In Little Beauty Queen, one mother allowed her 4-year-old daughter to dress up as a sex worker, played by Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. This incident made a big issue of public fighting. The American media personality Shirley Shepard, because of that, loudly criticized TLC television network and the parents joining in the contest. In 2013, France became a leader in doing things to stop possible dangers that might show up with children's beauty pageants. The Senate made a bill which stopped children under the age of 16 from being in such contests. Any person who helps their child's being part of a beauty pageant is put for a prison sentence of up to 2 years, as well as a fine of $30,000. Meanwhile, in the UK, the USA, Canada, and other nations, a bunch of people help cause for banning beauty contests with children. Nevertheless, as said previously, in America, children's beauty pageants are a $5 billion industry. Those who put their money into its connected interests and money aren't going to give away that really good way of making cash without a fight. It has also been said that entering beauty contests is like a free thing for someone to do, so also are choices in what clothes they like. Further, people are told to point their work to stopping true crime activities against minors. While not all without some reason, when faced with this mixed world, what can be done to protect our children? How do we help in showing them through these dangers and help our children to value pure and good childhoods? It means helping children be independent, giving children ways of thinking to find beauty inside and out, in order for children to not be persuaded to go by the wrong views of beauty pushed by the media and by bad sensational public opinion. True liking oneself, self-pride, and good inner self-feeling is like a strong mind. Physical beauty, of course, can also be good. However, most essential it is to try for a nice way of life. May every child have a healthy, easygoing, and happy childhood. Stay careful and remain safe. Story 4. On March 17, 2025, Hong Kong's media outlets published a somber obituary. Lee Seow-ki, the founder of Henderson Land Development, and one of the big four tycoons who defined the city's golden age, known affectionately as Fourth Uncle, passed away at the age of 97. As the news spread, the name Seven Fairy, that Tian Vu, a renowned mystic, exploded across social media. Just weeks earlier, in late February, she had prophesied that a prominent Hong Kong tycoon surnamed Lee would face a grave calamity. She emphasized that this figure had long been fated to depart, but had extended his life through years of charitable deeds. However, when the rare astronomical phenomenon of 7 stars aligned occurred, 7 celestial bodies in perfect alignment, even he could not defy heaven's mandate. At the time, many speculated she referred to Li Ka-shing, Hong Kong's richest billionaire. Yet, 2 weeks later, it was Lee Seow-ki who passed. Netizens responded with bow-biting sarcasm. Perhaps Li Ka-shing is the one popping champagne. Not only has his lifelong rival left the stage first, but he's also dodged a cosmic calamity meant for him. In truth, much like how few care about the world's second richest person, Lee Seow-ki was the eternal runner-up among Hong Kong's billionaires. His fame within the Chinese community and media presence paled beside Li Ka-shing's. Yet, in the realm of feng shui, Lee Seow-ki was revered as a near-mythical figure, a living testament to the adage, trust in feng shui and wealth will follow. Even his death was foretold with uncanny precision by mystics, as if his entire life embodied the saying, Life and death are fated, wealth and honor lie with heaven. But did his staggering $300 billion fortune truly stem solely from strategic feng shui arrangements and ancestral tomb renovations? Let's journey back in time to uncover the lesser-known, mystically charged life of Li Xiaoqi. When it comes to Hong Kong's rags-to-riches billionaires, one word likely springs to mind: real estate. Indeed, among the big four families, Li Ka-shing, Li Xiaoqi, Kwok Tak-seng, and Chung Yu-tung, regardless of their starting point, it was their foray into property that catapulted them to staggering wealth, ushering in Hong Kong's golden era. A glance at the list of Hong Kong's 10 wealthiest families reveals that, apart from the Tsai family, founders of Alibaba, the other 9 all have ties to real estate. This alone paints a vivid picture of the cutthroat nature of this industry. So how did Li Xiaoqi rise to claim the number 2 spot in such a fiercely competitive field? The answer lies in this. He won right from the starting line. On February 20th, 1928, in the bustling town of Daliang, Shund, Guangdong, the Li family welcomed their 4th son. This is why, whether among business partners or rivals, he would later be affectionately known as 4th uncle. When Li Xiaoqi was born, his father, Li Kaipa, was riding a wave of prosperity, his businesses blossoming on silk, blazing on oil. The family owned 2 renowned jewelry shops in Shund, Tin Padung Gold Shop and Wingsang Bank. With superior quality and competitive pricing, they dominated over 90% of the local market, be it for weddings, funerals, or newborn celebrations. Owning a piece of jewelry from the Li family's shops was a point of pride. But Li Kaipa's ambitions didn't stop there. He recognized Shun's potential as a thriving port city and pioneered ventures in import, export, and foreign currency exchange. Foreign merchant ships docking at the port made a beeline for the Li family's bank to exchange currency. Likewise, those heading to Southeast Asia for business relied on the Li's to convert foreign currency into negotiable notes. This constant flow of capital rapidly swelled the family's wealth. Their silver shops expanded across Guangdong, cementing the Li's as one of the region's wealthiest clans. In just over 2 decades, Li Kaipa built a thriving business empire that left onlookers in awe. Local folklore attributed this success to the Li family's ancestral tomb, said to be perfectly aligned with a dragon vein. This sacred burial site sat atop Feingang Mountain in Daliang, encircled by verdant peaks with a gentle stream flowing in front, like a protective river. Such topography symbolized descendants gathered in harmony, brimming with auspicious energy, believed to attract wealth and prosperity. The Li family's tomb, perched at the mountain's summit, was said to channel the spiritual energy of the entire range. Meticulously maintained and expanded, it resembled a royal mausoleum. Consequently, Feingang Mountain Cemetery earned the title of China's most auspicious feng shui burial ground, with prices soaring ever higher. Today, securing a burial plot there is unthinkable. Even a small urn of ashes costs over $2,400. Add to that a maintenance fee of over $850 every 10 years. No wonder netizens jest. Li Xiaoqi didn't just drive up property prices in the living world. He's made the afterlife's real estate market skyrocket, too. Li Xiaoqi was a bright child, quick-witted and articulate, doted on by his parents. Tragically, his 2 elder brothers passed away in childhood. In an era that heavily favored sons, the arrival of this boy, though the 4th son, was a source of immense joy for the family. In truth, he became the de facto eldest son of the lineage. News of the new heir spread swiftly, and Li Kaipa poured his hopes and expectations into this son. He didn't merely want the boy to inherit the family business. He envisioned the Li name soaring to new heights. The name Xiaoqi, meaning to flourish brilliantly, was chosen to reflect this ambition. His surviving elder brother, Li Xiaolam, was sidelined from the role of heir. At age 3, Li Xiaoqi was enrolled in one of Shun's most prestigious private schools. By 10, his father hired top tutors from Guangzhou, including a university professor of Chinese literature, to teach him at home. Beyond academics, Li Xiaoqi began learning the family trade. Barely tall enough to see over the shop counter, he accompanied his father on business dealings, mastering everything from sourcing materials and crafting jewelry to sales, customer service, and bookkeeping with remarkable precision. Thanks to his innate intelligence, by age 12, he was managing the family's shops. They say he could gauge the purity of gold just by holding it, calculating a fair selling price in his head. Even seasoned merchants marveled at his skill. His father entrusted the family's two largest gold and silver shops in Shund to this 12-year-old prodigy, earning him the nickname Little Boss. Let's pause for a moment. What were we doing at 12? Now consider Li Shaoqi at that age, tutored by university professors, managing gold and silver shops, handling vast sums of money, and overseeing immense wealth. He didn't just start at the finish line. His starting line was a step from victory. Yet, in an era of war and upheaval, no amount of wealth, talent, or auspicious feng shui could shield the Li family from history's tides. In 1945, Japan surrendered, ending World War II. But peace brought chaos. Counterfeit money issued by the Japanese in occupied territories became worthless overnight. Even notes from the Republic of China's central bank plummeted in value. The Li family's bank teetered on collapse, their vast cash reserves rendered useless. After shuttering multiple branches, Li Kaipo returned to Shund, the cradle of their fortune. While gold and silver sustained the business, he knew the risks of putting all his eggs in one basket. He sent his eldest son, Li Xiao Lam, to study in Zhangjiang, kept his youngest, Li Xiao Nam, in Shun to manage operations, and placed his greatest hopes in Li Shaoqi. With 1,000 Hong Kong dollars in hand, Li Shaoqi set off alone for Hong Kong. By 1958, Hong Kong's population was booming and housing demand far outstripped supply. At 30, the age of standing firm in Confucian tradition, when one establishes a career and societal role, Li Shaoqi's sharp mind spotted the immense potential in real estate. Though he'd amassed wealth through the jewelry trade, venturing into property development required substantial capital. He persuaded trusted business contacts to pool resources, founding Wing Yip Enterprises. After 5 years of market exploration, Li Shaoqi, alongside major shareholders Kwok Tak-sung and Feng King He, established Sun Hung Kai Properties, initially Sun Hung Kai Enterprises. This real estate titan would dominate Hong Kong's landscape for over half a century. Later, scholar Chang Hung Tai, an expert on the history of overseas Chinese tycoon families, described Li Shaoqi in his book, He, Kwok Tak-sang, and Feng King He were dubbed the Three Musketeers of real estate. Yet in public, Li often stood behind the other two, as if uninvolved in major decisions, earning the playful moniker, Little Brother. Behind the scenes, however, despite Kwok and Feng being a decade or two his senior, they held him in high regard. This speaks volumes about Li Shaoqi's talent and capability. His role was akin to that of Zhuge Liang, the master strategist. Even today, the concept of installment-based home purchases, paying in stages over 10 years, was pioneered by Li Shaoqi. Though criticized for ushering in an era of mortgage slavery, burdening generations with debt, it also enabled countless middle and lower-class Hong Kong residents to own homes, providing stability to build their lives. The move-in now, pay-later model was an instant hit, warmly embraced by the market. Coupled with Ho Ing Tung's presale speculation model, the two were likened to the Eastern Heretic and Western Venom of the real estate world. Yet their fierce rivalry ultimately paved the way for another to seize the prize. In the late 1960s, Hong Kong descended into social unrest. Worker movements surged and violence erupted frequently. The once red-hot property market crashed. As investors frantically sold off assets to cut losses, a bold young man swam against the tide, snapping up land and old properties at rock-bottom prices. A few years later, when the storm subsided and entrepreneurs returned to Hong Kong, he sold his acquisitions at astronomical profits. With a single move, he vaulted into the ranks of Hong Kong's elite. That young man, seemingly scripted from a time travel drama, was none other than Li Ka-shing. From this moment, a rivalry spanning over half a century between the two Lis, Li Ka-shing and Li Shaoqi, began. Initially, both men operated in real estate, but carved out distinct paths. Li Shaoqi focused on compact family homes, while Li Ka-shing targeted industrial complexes. Their separate trajectories kept conflicts to a minimum. In the early 1990s, they even collaborated on a landmark project in Hong Kong's mid-levels west, naming it K Shu Terrace, a fusion of one character from each of their names, symbolizing the triumph of their partnership. Regrettably, this honeymoon period was short-lived, shattered by the infamous battle for the Miramar Hotel. The saga began when the Miramar Hotel, Hong Kong's first Chinese-owned hotel, plunged into a bitter inheritance dispute after its owner, Young Chi-wan, passed away. His children sued one another over the estate, forcing the hotel onto the market. Located in the prime Tsim Sha Tsui district, this coveted property sparked a frenzy among real estate titans, even before it was officially listed. The frontrunner was Li Ka-shing's Chung Kong Holdings, bolstered by an alliance with mainland China's veteran financier, Young Chi-kin. Backed by this financial powerhouse, they offered a staggering $12.5 billion to acquire the Miramar outright. Perhaps believing victory was assured, Li Ka-shing grew overconfident. Before the deal was finalized, he revealed to the press his plans to demolish the Miramar, erect a new building, and integrate it into his hotel conglomerate. This news reached Young Bing-ching, the eldest son of the late Young Chi-wan, who was outraged. Young Bing-ching demanded the Miramar's brand and independent management be preserved, but Li Ka-shing, leveraging his financial dominance, flatly refused. "Once I buy it, it's mine. What I do with it is none of your business," he declared. This arrogance incensed Young, who turned to Li Shaoqi, hoping their shared shunned hometown connection with his father would compel Li to intervene by purchasing the Miramar. After weighing the stakes, Li Shaoqi proposed acquiring a 35% stake at $2.43 per share, positioning himself as the largest shareholder to challenge Li Ka-shing. Furious at seeing the prize slip away, Li Ka-shing sued Young Bing-ching and Li Shaoqi, alleging unfair competitive interference. In retaliation, Young countersued, accusing Li of malicious acquisition. Both sides enlisted top-tier lawyers, and the legal battle, fiercely contested, captivated the media. Ultimately, the court ruled in favor of Young Bing-ching and Li Shaoqi. The deal succeeded, with Li Shaoqi investing $4.8 billion to become the majority shareholder, honoring his pledge to preserve the Miramar and restore operational control to Young Bing-ching. In essence, they traded ownership for governance, a mutually beneficial arrangement. However, this marked the beginning of a deep-seated feud between Li Shaoqi and Li Ka-shing. Thereafter, the two clashed repeatedly over land acquisitions and project developments. Headlines often blared, "Li Shaoqi's son, Hung Kai Properties, locks horns with Li Ka-shing's Chung Kong Group in legal showdowns." Their empires were evenly matched, each scoring victories and losses. The rivalry simmered over the years, until the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge project ignited a major showdown. Li Ka-shing, whose portfolio included extensive ferry transport businesses, vehemently opposed the bridge, arguing that existing ferry services were sufficient. Meanwhile, Li Shaoqi mobilized his network, forging an alliance with 5 of Hong Kong's top tycoons to counter Li's influence. The bridge project was approved and commenced construction. As road transport became dominant, Li Ka-shing's ferry operations suffered heavy losses. Post-conflict, Li Ka-shing gradually withdrew from Hong Kong, offloading assets and redirecting investments to the UK, Canada, Australia, and beyond. From a real estate king, he transformed into a master of capital orchestration. His empire pivoted accordingly. Li Shaoqi, seizing the momentum of road infrastructure growth, expanded his real estate empire across southern China. The race for the title of Hong Kong's richest billionaire, between the two, remained a hot topic in financial and media circles. Calling Li Shaoqi the eternal runner-up isn't entirely accurate. In 1996, he briefly overtook Li Ka-shing as Hong Kong's wealthiest, fueled by a real estate boom. But the Asian financial crisis soon erupted, bursting the property bubble and dethroning him. From then on, Li Ka-shing consistently outranked him. If Li Ka-shing is akin to Elon Musk, playfully awarding a silver medal to Jeff Bezos, Li Shaoqi could fill a room with silver medals. Remarkably, Li Shaoqi named his youngest son Kai-shing, a not-so-subtle jab, as if to say, "I'm your father." The name symbolized their decades-long love-hate rivalry, and Li's reluctance to remain in his rival's shadow. The two battled lifelong in the boardroom, and even in the realm of feng shui they were neck and neck. Li Ka-shing once said in an interview, "Small wealth comes from effort, but great wealth comes from fate," revealing his deep belief in feng shui and destiny. Folk tales abound, like how he used feng shui formations to neutralize negative energy from the Bank of China and HSBC buildings, or chilling rumors of rituals to appease his late wife's spirit. Li Shaoqi was no less devoted to feng shui. From selecting villa locations to their designs, every detail bore the mark of master geomancers. Yet his greatest concern wasn't just amassing wealth, but ensuring it endured across generations. This task he couldn't accomplish alone, bringing us to the billion-dollar daughter-in-law, Deborah Su Chiqing, a Hong Kong actress and model. If Li Shaoqi was destined for fortune, Su Chiqing was the one who defied fate to enter this elite dynasty. The story begins in 2006 with a wedding that shook Hong Kong. Held at Sydney's Royal Botanic Garden, the event cost $100 million. From venue decor and gourmet cuisine to jewelry and attire, every element exuded opulence. Hong Kong media later revealed that Su Chiqing's makeup and hairstyling alone cost over $140,000. Each strand of hair radiating wealth. Her diamond ring, blindingly radiant, featured a flawless 7-carat stone in a minimalist design, valued in the tens of millions. At the ceremony, Li Shaoqi gifted the couple a 100-kilogram bar of 9,999 pure gold, symbolizing a path to boundless prosperity. The bride's family, especially Su's mother, beamed with satisfaction as her meticulously planned marry-up strategy, set in motion over 2 decades earlier when her daughter was born, had come to fruition. Su Chiqing's father, Su Chuanshun, was a seasoned accountant, while her mother was a full-time homemaker. Their family was solidly middle-class in Hong Kong, but for her mother, this wasn't enough. Her daughter had to surpass her parents, and the path was clear. Marry into the ultra-wealthy elite, becoming a lady of high society. Even during pregnancy, she consulted a feng shui master to select the perfect birth hour. Despite doctors confirming a healthy fetus suitable for natural birth, she insisted on a cesarean to ensure her daughter's Batsi, astrological birth chart, was flawless. It's said that the day after meeting his future daughter-in-law, Li Shaoqi took her photo and birth details to a trusted feng shui master. After analysis, the master praised Su Chiqing's beauty and declared her Batsi exceptionally auspicious, predicting she would bring wealth to her husband and prosperity to the family, soon bearing a male heir. With this endorsement, Li Shaoqi swiftly arranged the marriage. But rewind 2 decades, and Su's mother revealed in an interview that crafting a wealth-attracting Batsi was merely the first step. She ensured Su Chiqing never did chores, preserving her soft, fair hands to showcase jewelry elegantly. Rough, calloused hands, she believed, would deter wealthy suitors. Raised with meticulous care, Su Chiqing grew up with porcelain skin and a charming, cherubic face, adored by all, a perfect lady in her mother's eyes, destined for a tycoon's household. To enhance her pedigree, the family sold their assets and emigrated to Australia, polishing Su's background. Under her mother's calculated guidance, Su Chiqing excelled academically, mastered social graces, and blossomed into a radiant beauty. At 14, during a visit to Hong Kong, her striking appearance caught the eye of a street talent scout who offered her a modeling contract. Showbiz, however, was a murky world, and tycoons often frowned upon models and actresses. Initially, her mother opposed it, but after consulting the fortune teller who predicted Su's noble benefactor lay in entertainment, she relented. She allowed Su to sign, imposing strict rules: no revealing outfits, no dating, and no overnight stays away from home. To her mother, showbiz was a stepping stone to elevate Su's profile, not to tarnish her reputation. Over the next few years, Su Chiqing transitioned from modeling to acting, landing minor roles. Though her performances were unremarkable, her name gained recognition. In 2000, rumors swirled of a romance with Timothy Hong, son of Sammo Hung, a renowned Hong Kong director, producer, and martial arts choreographer. Paparazzi frequently snapped the couple on dates, Sammo Hung approved, telling reporters, "As long as my son likes her, that's enough." But Sue's mother was unimpressed. Despite the family's influence in entertainment, they didn't meet her lofty standards. She publicly opposed the relationship, citing Sammo Hung's playboy reputation and rumored triad ties, implying his son was cut from the same cloth. This enraged Sammo Hung, who joined efforts to derail the romance. The couple eventually parted ways. It's said, Timothy Hung once knelt at the Sue family's doorstep, begging for reconciliation, only to be turned away. Sue Chi-ching's rejection of becoming Sammo Hung's daughter-in-law was a media sensation. According to her father's brother, upon learning Sue was dating Martin Lee Ka-shing, the family secretly relocated their ancestral tomb to boost her fortune. Their efforts paid off, and Sue Chi-ching became the billionaire's daughter-in-law. However, the uncle's family faced a string of misfortunes, joblessness, illness, believing the feng shui master had siphoned their luck to Sue via dark arts. This sparked a media frenzy in Hong Kong. 2 years after Sue's wedding, her father clarified that the families had reconciled, but restoring their luck was impossible, and compensation was unavoidable. If Martin Lee Ka-shing was born steps from the finish line, Sue Chi-ching's parents paved her path and built bridges throughout her childhood. With natural beauty, intelligence, effort, and feng shui's aid, she became the billion-dollar daughter-in-law. Nearly 2 decades after entering the Lee dynasty, describing Sue Chi-ching's life as blissfully perfect falls short. It's more, only those under the blanket know its flaws. In public, she dazzles with elegance, her aura impeccable, her collection of unique Hermes Birkin bags, seasonal haute couture gowns, and engagement rings escalating from 7 to 20 carats, rivaling mahjong tiles in size, define high society. Yet behind the glamour, being a tycoon's daughter-in-law has its burdens. At the wedding, Li Shaoqi's 100-kilogram gold bar gift, meant to spur procreation, was literal pressure. A year after marrying, Sue Chi-ching gave birth to her first daughter, Li Haitung. Named by Li Shaoqi, the name's homophone, hope for a son, reflected the family's desire for a male heir. Still, Li adored his granddaughter. As a feng shui master declared her a golden bowl beside Guan Yin's incarnation. In her first month, her auspicious aura reportedly brought the company billions. The master emphasized that such a well-fated child required a birth time to the second, and even a precisely scheduled conception by Sue and Martin. 2 years later, Sue Chi-ching welcomed her second daughter, Li Hei, who received less favor than her sister. Meanwhile, Li Shaoqi's eldest son, Peter Li Ka-kit, secured triplet sons via surrogacy, bolstering the previously overlooked elder branch's status. Sue Chi-ching, having borne 2 daughters, faced immense pressure. Hong Kong tabloids captured her parents visiting temples, consulting feng shui masters to open her fortune and pray for a son. Whether divine intervention or luck, in 2011, Sue Chi-ching gave birth to a son, Li Chun-hei. The Li family's naming adhered to strict conventions, though gender distinctions were clear. Hei in daughters' names meant morning dew-dried, while in sons, per empresses in the palace, it signified a dark past untraceable, a future brilliantly radiant. She later bore another son, Li Kin-hei. In 8 years, Sue Chi-ching delivered 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, fulfilling the dynasty's procreation quota. One might assume she could now relax as a lady of leisure, but her husband's repeated infidelity scandals, splashed across gossip columns, proved otherwise. In 2016, rumors linked actress Natalie Chow to an illegitimate child, pressuring the Lees for recognition. Media claimed Martin Lee Ka-shing lavished Chow with designer bags, jewelry, and an exorbitantly priced overseas villa, even involving her in family investment projects, as if preparing to her status. Li Shaoqi vehemently opposed this, citing Sue Chi-ching's role in the family's prosperity. As long as he lived, Mistress Chow would never enter the fold. It's speculated that after Li Shaoqi's passing, a fierce battle over the Li fortune may erupt. In 2019, at 91, Li Shaoqi announced his retirement. His sons, Peter Li Ka-kit and Martin Li Ka-shing, assumed control of assets in Hong Kong, mainland China, and beyond. Li Shaoqi settled into retirement. His final photographed moment showed him in a wheelchair, resting in the gardens of his lavish mid-levels villa, attended by nurses and aides. Purchased in 2010 for $143 million US, the villa took a decade to build, at an estimated $570 million US. Yet Li never resided there. Rumors swirled that a feng shui master deemed it incompatible with his destiny, prompting him to stay in his old home. In 2024, after a sudden illness and hospitalization, he moved into the villa. Shortly after he passed away there, his death shrouded in mystery and feng shui intrigue. Li Shaoqi's life marked the end of a golden era. Once a dominant force among tycoons, only Li Ka-shing remains from that first generation. From a small-town boy to Hong Kong's real estate king, Li Shaoqi's life intertwined with history, feng shui mystique, and high-stakes power plays. He departed amid glory and enigma, closing a resplendent chapter of Hong Kong's Big Four dynasties. Story 5. On July 25, 2024, the sequel everyone was waiting for, Deadpool and Wolverine, came out. The movie made everyone remember Deadpool and everyone was talking about him again. But while this was happening, another name became really popular, a terrible criminal named Wade Wilson, the same name as the movie character everyone loves. This weird coincidence made people talk about it and got everyone's attention. We're talking about the story of a criminal who didn't care about anyone. And what's even more surprising is that when he was arrested and put on trial, a lot of women thought he was charming and good-looking, instead of saying what he did was wrong. Thousands of women sent him letters and photographs and even asked the judge to go easy on him. How could someone so terrible get so much sympathy and admiration? Why was everyone so interested in this case? As always, before we talk about the mysteries of this case, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more true crime content. Now let's go back to 2019 and talk about the terrible events that shocked everyone in America. In the coastal city of Cape Coral, in southwest Florida's Lee County, you'll find over 400 miles of man-made canals. This setup has earned the area the nickname Waterfront Wonderland, making it one of the most canal-packed cities on the planet. With these unique waterways and a relaxed waterside lifestyle, Cape Coral pulls in plenty of tourists every year. Christine Melton, 35, was single, warm, and outgoing, and she cared deeply about her family. Born in 1984 to a regular family in Illinois, she charmed everyone from a young age with her bright personality, good looks, and great sense of style. Her friends often called her the sweet girl. A few years back, she and her family moved to Cape Coral, where she worked as a waitress. Off the clock, she often helped her cousin with his kids and took care of her mother, who suffered from Alzheimer's. Her brother admired her as the one who kept the family going. No matter how tough things got, Melton never complained. She lived in a 2-story apartment in Cape Coral with her cat, and everyone figured she was on track for a happy, stable life. But nobody knew a shocking tragedy was just around the corner. On October 7, 2019, the Cape Coral police got a call that caught them off guard. On the other end was a panicked man. Some crazy guy barged into my shop, yelling that he just took a woman's life and demanded I buy him a bus ticket so he could skip town. At first, I thought he was joking, but when I saw what looked like red syrup all over his clothes, I realized this was no joke. The caller, who owned a small print shop, said the unhinged stranger took off before cops showed up, leaving behind only a black car. When officers searched the abandoned vehicle, they found long reddish stains on the passenger seat and signs of a collision, scratches and dents on the front. After looking into it, they discovered the car was registered to Melton. She wasn't answering calls or texts, a major red flag. Worried about her, the police headed straight to Melton's apartment. What they found was truly disturbing. Right outside her bedroom was a woman's body. Her face had been beaten. Her neck was covered in dark bruises, and her fingernails were broken. There was red fluid everywhere. She'd been tied up with clothes and bedsheets. After the medical examiner checked, the cops confirmed the victim was Melton. There was no doubt she'd been brutally attacked before her life was taken. Even though Melton fought back with everything she had, she still ended up losing her life in the most brutal way. From what the cops learned, she was a genuinely kind person, loyal to her friends and family, never making enemies. So who the hell would do something this cold-blooded to her? While everyone was still stunned, Melton's close friend Celeste mentioned a suspicious guy. Celeste said that on the night before the murder, sometime after 10 p.m., she and Melton hit up a bar in Fort Myers to let loose. Dancing, drinking, just enjoying a rare break after work. That's when a tall, good-looking guy strolled over and started chatting them up. He introduced himself as JR, said he was 25, with short hair, fair skin, thick eyebrows, big eyes, and these killer dimples that showed up when he smiled. He had a bunch of tattoos on his neck and arms, stood well over 6 feet, and had an athletic build. Basically, the total package. But it wasn't just looks. JR was funny, smooth-talking, and had this warm, classy vibe. He was the kind of guy who could easily be a dream come true for a lot of women. And Melton was totally into him from the jump, even thinking maybe she'd met her soulmate. JR's buddy Jason was there, too. Also a laid-back, hilarious guy. Within minutes, Jason had both women cracking up like old friends. By the time the bar closed at around 2 a.m., nobody wanted to call it a night. They decided to head over to Jason's place to keep hanging out. The second they stepped into the bedroom, Melton and JR were all over each other. Not wanting to play third wheel, Jason and Celeste headed out to the backyard to keep talking. 2 hours later, Jason's family, ticked off by all the noise, came out fuming. After getting chewed out, JR hopped in his car and drove the 2 women back to Melton's apartment in Cape Coral. It was around 6 a.m. by then. Celeste had to bounce. She needed to take her kid to school. Before leaving, she and Melton agreed to meet up for dinner that evening. Little did they know, that was the last time they'd ever see each other. Armed with the clues Celeste gave them, the cops quickly confirmed that the man who'd stormed into the print shop matched JR's description perfectly. It looked like JR was their prime suspect in Melton's murder. It turns out that on the morning of October 7th, around 8:50 a.m., the cops got another report that raised some serious red flags. In a downtown Fort Myers parking lot, a couple had gotten into a nasty fight. The guy not only attacked his girlfriend, but even tried to force her into his car. By the time the police arrived, he'd taken off. The victim, a woman named Melissa, told the officers, "Last night, I went out drinking at a bar with my boyfriend. He brought along a friend and even tried to get me to crash at that friend's place. I flat out refused. Right after that, he lost it, stormed off, took my car and left me stranded at the bar. Couldn't believe it. Then this morning, he actually showed up at my workplace, attacked me, and even tried grabbing me by the neck. I had to fight like crazy just to get away." Her statement was recorded around 3 p.m. that same day. The cops managed to track down this violent boyfriend. When they found him, he was shirtless, just chilling in Melissa's car. But as soon as they told him to hand over the keys and step out, he flawed it and sped off. This guy had fair skin, big eyes, a solid muscular build, and a bunch of tattoos. Pretty much a perfect match for JR's description. Plus, he'd taken friends to the same bar where Melton met JR, and he had a serious mean streak. Every piece of the puzzle fit perfectly. The cops launched an investigation and identified him as Wade Wilson. Wade was only 25, but he'd already led a seriously messed up life. Born on May 20th, 1994, in Fort Myers, Florida, his parents were barely teenagers, about 14 or 15, way too young and troubled to raise a kid. His mom had mental health issues and struggled with addiction. His dad, Stephen, ended up handing him over to the Wilsons, a couple who adopted him. But unlike those tragic, made-for-TV adoption stories, Wade actually landed in a pretty sweet deal. His adoptive parents were well off, treated him like their own flesh and blood, and gave him every advantage. He had 2 older sisters who absolutely doted on him, spoiling him rotten. The whole family was active in church. As a kid, Wade was outgoing, sporty, and got decent grades. But when he hit high school, something snapped. He shut down, got weird, and avoided talking to anyone. On top of that, he started picking fights, getting into drugs, and basically living on the edge. classmates whispered behind his back, calling him the psycho who loves to throw punches. His family blamed it all on substance abuse and tried everything. Rehab, psychiatric hospitals, but nothing worked. At 18, Wade reconnected with his biological parents. He frequently contacted his biological father, Stephen, demanding money. Plagued by guilt, Stephen always gave in, providing Wade with large sums. This only fueled his recklessness, leading to further involvement in criminal activities. In November 2013, Wade was arrested for burglary and remained incarcerated until September 2014. In 2015, he faced charges related to assault and kidnapping. But due to his adamant denial and lack of evidence, the jury acquitted him. In 2018, he was entangled in the case of Dennis, a woman convicted of conspiring to murder her husband, with allegations that Wade attempted to tamper with evidence. On February 19, 2019, Wade's ex-girlfriend accused him of stealing her laptop and cell phone, claiming he had also kidnapped and assaulted her. The court issued a restraining order against him. On July 1, 2019, he was arrested again for assault. Wade was also implicated in numerous other offenses, including brawls, drug dealing, and even human trafficking. This extensive criminal record made him a prime suspect. At the time of Melton's murder, Wade was out on parole. When the police attempted to bring him in for questioning, they discovered he had already vanished. This sudden disappearance was a clear indication of guilt. As authorities launched a manhunt at 10:30 p.m. that same day, Wade's biological father, Stephen, made a shocking report. His son had just confessed over the phone to taking a woman's life. This was a major breakthrough for the police. Initially, Stephen couldn't believe his son's words. But as the details of the crime were recounted with chilling accuracy, he was forced to confront the truth. To prevent his son from sinking deeper into depravity, he decided to contact the authorities. When Wade called again, Stephen put him on speakerphone, allowing the police to listen in. During the call, Wade gloated, describing in detail the two heinous crimes he had committed. It was at this point that the police realized Wade had claimed the lives of two women in a single day. On the morning of October 7, 2019, Wade took advantage of Melton's slumber, suffocating her to death. He initially intended to dispose of her body, but found it too rigid to fit in the trunk of his car. Leaving her body behind, he drove Melton's car to see his ex-girlfriend, Melissa, with whom he had argued the previous day. Despite reconciling with her, Wade's rage remained unquenched, and he drove off aimlessly. Along the way, he encountered a middle-aged woman walking alone and seized the opportunity to commit another horrific act. He lured her into his car under the pretense of asking for directions. As soon as she entered the vehicle, Wade brutally attacked her. Despite having no prior conflict, his violent assault continued for an extended period, rendering the woman unconscious. Believing her to be dead, Wade attempted to abandon her body, but discovered she was still alive. In an act of unimaginable cruelty, he then drove over her more than 10 times. The chilling story Wade recounted left everyone in stunned silence. When Stephen questioned his son's motives, Wade responded with chilling indifference. Throughout the call, he showed no remorse, even expressing pride in his heinous crimes. Finally, he demanded his father arrange a vehicle for his escape. Stephen, however, remained composed. In a split second, he chose justice over protecting his son. He decided to assist the police in apprehending Wade. Pretending to agree to send a car, he tricked his son into revealing his location, which he immediately relayed to the authorities. When the police arrived at a secluded house, they found Wade nonchalantly sitting in the living room, casually eating chicken feet and drinking, seemingly devoid of guilt or fear. Even when confronted by the police, he made no attempt to flee, further enraging those who witnessed his arrest. After Wade was apprehended, the police invited Melton's close friend Cyrus to identify him. Cyrus confirmed that Wade was indeed JR, the man they had met at the bar that fateful night. According to Wade's confession during the phone call, he had attacked two women that day. In addition to Melton, the other victim was believed to be Diane Ruiz, a 43-year-old bartender. Diane's family had reported her missing at 4 p.m. on October 7th. The investigation revealed that Diane was a recently engaged single mother with 2 sons, aged 13 and 29. Her colleagues described her as the life of the party, always enthusiastic and approachable. Her infectious laughter could be heard from afar, the joy of the bar. Throughout her 5 years of employment, Diane had been dedicated, never missing a shift or having any conflicts with anyone. That morning, around 10 a.m., she mysteriously vanished while on her way to Moss Cottage Bar. The time and location perfectly aligned with Wade's account. After 3 days of searching, the police finally had a lead. About 800 meters from Diane's home, near a Sam's Club, a vulture was circling a field. Vultures are known to be attracted to corpses. Upon closer inspection, the police discovered a severely decomposed body, disfigured beyond recognition. The coroner used DNA and a faded tattoo on the victim's back to confirm that it was indeed Diane. With Diane's identity confirmed, surveillance footage from nearby security cameras captured Melton's car at the crime scene around the time of the murder. Furthermore, the police found Diane's cell phone inside the vehicle, and the crimson stains near the car door were also identified as Diane's blood. The evidence was overwhelming, with witnesses, physical evidence, and a clear timeline. On October 19, 2019, Wade was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, aggravated battery, and grand theft. In June 2024, after nearly 5 years of waiting, the case finally went to trial. The judge presented a wealth of compelling evidence, including the recorded phone call, DNA test results, surveillance footage, and witness testimonies, including that of Wade's biological father, Stephen. Stephen's testimony was particularly powerful. He recounted the details of Wade's crimes and candidly admitted, "I did have a moment where I considered helping my son escape." The judge inquired, "Did you initially struggle with the decision to turn your son in?" "I did," Stephen replied. "Did your thoughts change after speaking with your son on the phone?" "Yes." "Why?" "I just thought, if those victims were my mother, my daughter, my sister, or my wife, I wouldn't want anyone to do that to them." "Were you concerned about what might happen if you didn't turn your son in?" "Yes." "What might have happened?" "He would have continued to commit more crimes." Undeniably, this father deserves immense respect. It's truly rare to find someone who upholds justice so resolutely, even when it means turning against their own flesh and blood. One of Wade's ex-girlfriends, Kelly, also took the stand, testifying to his violent tendencies. "He attacked me in his car, biting my face and chin. I reported it to the police, but they said there wasn't enough evidence and it was just brushed aside." Had the police believed Kelly and arrested Wade then, perhaps these 2 tragedies could have been prevented. A tragic missed opportunity, but there's no room for what-ifs. Faced with the overwhelming evidence against him, Wade remained utterly indifferent and cold, seemingly unconcerned. He had no tattoos when he was arrested, but during his time in jail, he had his face tattooed with a sinister clown and Nazi symbols, stitches at the corners of his mouth, and his neck covered in ink with the phrase "Born for War." These tattoos gave him a truly menacing and terrifying appearance. At the trial, Wade appeared in a neat suit with his hair styled, but his demeanor was one of arrogance. He sat smugly, not only displaying disrespect, but occasionally rolling his eyes and denying all charges. He even declared, "I'm not a monster, nor am I a saint. Sure, I've made some bad decisions, but everyone makes mistakes." Clearly, Wade not only showed no remorse for his brutal actions, but seemed to relish the fear he instilled in others. His defense attorney even attempted to shift the blame to mental health issues and brain damage. Dr. Mark, a neurology expert, suggested that Wade might have suffered brain injuries, and his biological mother's history of mental illness indicated a high risk of genetic predisposition. His sister, Wendy, also confirmed that Wade had experienced multiple concussions from car accidents and playing sports, potentially leading to brain damage. The defense further emphasized Wade's abandonment by his birth parents, his subsequent substance abuse, and psychological struggles. Wade's adoptive parents also wrote a letter to the court, pleading for leniency. "We know that Wade's soul has been possessed by a deranged demon, but we believe that the innocent boy he once was is still somewhere inside him. Please sentence him to life in prison and don't take his life. While the details of his abandonment, substance abuse, and psychological challenges were factual, Wade had been raised in a loving adoptive home. These circumstances could not excuse his heinous crimes. The judge firmly declared, "I will not be swayed by these things." The first murder was shockingly brutal and cold-blooded, but the second was even more heinous, calculated, and deliberate. After killing Melton, Wade didn't stop. He continued to hunt for his next victim. He was like a lion stalking its prey, and he was completely aware of his actions during the attacks. While many people struggle with substance abuse, not everyone descends to the depths of depravity that Wade did. After lengthy deliberations, the jury returned recommendations of 9-3 and 10-2 in favor of the death penalty for Wade in both cases. Sentences were also handed down for his other crimes, including grand theft, aggravated battery, and other violent offenses. At 4:30 p.m. on August 27, 2024, the court imposed 2 death sentences on Wade. The specific rulings were as follows. Count 1, for the murder of Christine Melton, sentenced to death. Count 2, for the theft of a motor vehicle, sentenced to 5 years in prison. Count 3, for aggravated battery against Melissa, sentenced to 364 days in jail. Count 4, for the murder of Diane Ruiz, sentenced to death. Count 5, for burglary, sentenced to 15 years in prison. Count 6, for petty theft, sentenced to 364 days in jail. The defendant's time served will be credited towards his total sentence, and all sentences will run concurrently. As the sentences were read, the victims' families wept openly, overcome with emotion. They had waited years for justice, but the pain of their loss would never truly fade. Diane's youngest son, Zane, who had just joined his high school band when his mother was murdered, shared through tears, "My mom didn't get to see any of my accomplishments. She'll never see me get married, have kids, graduate college, or even know what my first job is." Melton's brother added, "We haven't even been able to tell our mother that Melton has passed away, for fear that she wouldn't be able to handle it." Remarkably, upon hearing his death sentence, Wade remained stoic, even making a strange hand gesture. The true meaning of this gesture remains unclear. Though the perpetrator has been brought to justice and awaits execution in prison, the story doesn't end there. During his time incarcerated awaiting trial, Wade caused considerable trouble, including smuggling contraband, plotting an escape, and engaging in other criminal activities. In October 2020, Wade, along with a 34-year-old fellow inmate named Joseph, planned a prison break. Wade was the mastermind, breaking a window in the jail and arranging for a getaway car. But thankfully, their plan was foiled. In 2023, police found a gray grocery bag near the prison, containing 2 plastic bags filled with loose tobacco, drugs, lighters, and pills. An anonymous inmate revealed that these illicit substances were brought in by a 36-year-old man named Bobby, with most of it ending up in Wade's possession. He resold it to other inmates and was subsequently sentenced to 12 years in prison and fined $50,000. Wade had pledged to the prison authorities that he would cease his drug trafficking activities, leading to the dismissal of the escape charges against him. But there's an even stranger twist to this story. After the trial footage was released, some people became fixated on Wade's appearance and his arrogant demeanor in court. Images and short videos of him went viral, garnering millions of views and tens of thousands of fans. These individuals were captivated by his tattoos, his looks, and his cold, defiant attitude during the trial, even dubbing him the Deadpool Killer. Some online comments were truly baffling. "Look at his body, his face, he's so handsome. The face tattoos are stylish too. I want to be his wife. The trial wasn't fair at all. He shouldn't be on death row." These kinds of remarks were rampant. There were even fundraising efforts organized on Wade's behalf. For a $150 donation, participants could have a phone call with Wade. Those who contributed $1,000 or more received other special privileges. Beyond phone calls, supporters could even obtain items of clothing worn by Wade. The fundraising group declared, "Our fundraising efforts aim to help Wade build a reliable, professional, and competent legal team." Within days, hundreds of people joined in, with some even donating as much as $24,000, bringing the total amount raised to a staggering $72,358. During the 5 years awaiting trial, Wade received nearly 4,000 letters from admirers, including love letters and explicit photos from female fans. 163 of these photos were deemed too inappropriate and were rejected by the authorities. Some fans even wrote to the judge pleading for leniency and asking that Wade be spared the death penalty. Similar online petitions garnered over 26,000 signatures. Law enforcement officials strongly condemned and cautioned against this behavior. They emphasized Wade may have become an internet phenomenon, but the people who should be remembered are the two victims who lost their lives, Melton and Diane. They shouldn't be reduced to footnotes in Wade's story. They are the true focus. This blind devotion and infatuation with Wade is reminiscent of notorious criminals like the charming killer Ted Bundy, the Milwaukee cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer, and Richard Ramirez, one of the Night Stalkers. These individuals all had legions of obsessed fans, some even marrying female admirers while behind bars. When criminals are transformed into idols, attracting thousands of supporters, donations, and petition signatures, it not only inflicts further pain on the victims' families, but also reflects a disturbing distortion of justice and morality within a segment of society. Criminals are criminals and should not be glorified in any way. As the rain falls and the night deepens, thank you for being here with me at Radio Night Crime. True crime stories remind us of life's mysteries and the need to stay aware, even in the stillness of the night. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let the sound of the rain lull you to sleep, and until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night keep you company.